So speaking of hires, Pete Alonso's future with the Mets has continued to be uncertain, and as for right now, the pressure has escalated. The Mets star slugging first baseman has officially hired baseball's market high roller Scott Boras as his agent. The 28-year-old Alonso is set to become a free agent after the 2024 season, entering his sixth major league year this April. Although reports have consistently been mixed, the Mets have reportedly discussed the possibility of a contract extension recently. Both sides apparently are somewhat very close on average annual value, but significantly far apart on contract term. Alonso's chance of testing free agency is now very likely with Scott Boras in the equation, raising the uncertainty to the next level. Last offseason, the Mets faced a very similar situation with homegrown outfielder Brandon Nimmo, who ended up returning to the Mets on an 8-year, $162 million deal. This time, Boras is representing one of the most prolific power bats in all of baseball, who since his debut in 2019 leads the entirety of Major League Baseball in home runs and runs batted in.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Again, we saw it with Nimmo. The same thing. I think Nimmo was with CAA, and then, year before, I'm going to be a free agent. Let me go hire Boras. And then look what happened. Imagine telling yourself 3 years ago, Brandon Nimmo got $162 million for 8 seasons. Pete Alonso's doing the same thing. The first base market is not the center field market. It's not the shortstop market. But God, we all knew he was testing, because if they prioritized Jeff McNeil and say, they got the deal. There was reports that they weren't close when they got McNeil done. As soon as you got to this year, you knew he wasn't going to sign an extension, because guess what? Even if he didn't sign with Boras, why am I going to kill my negotiation power with one team? If I'm already this close, why would I sign an extension? Unless they give me some stupid offer, which the Mets rightfully so haven't given them. The AAV might be the same, but they don't want to be stuck 8 years with a first baseman. Could this be Nimmo 2.0? Possibly. But this is the type of situation where 162 at Brandon Nimmo, okay. If he gets 250 from some, because there will be, again, we're already hearing, the Cubs love him. That's already one team. Who else? Let's say San Diego. If there's all it takes, and you saw it with Jacob deGrom, it takes one stupid team to throw a stupid offer at him, and he's gone. So, and the Mets did the right thing with Jacob deGrom. Again, we'll see if that offer comes to Pete Alonso. But again, it takes, once we get to free agency, the Colorado Rockies could go, hey, you know what, Pete, here's $300 million, because that's what the Colorado Rockies do. And then you're not doing that if you're the Mets. You'd be an idiot to do that. It's because that's a stupid offer that he can't refuse, and you shouldn't match, and he's gone. So does this higher the chances of them at least exploring the trade? I think that raises that opportunity, and it should, because you can't let this kind of asset walk for a draft pick. We've made fun of the Angels how often this year? You can't lose Shohei Ohtani for a draft pick. If he's giving you every implication of testing the market, you need to do what's best for your future of the team and say, okay, you want to sign with Boras? Cool. We're going to let in and make sure you let him know ahead of time. We're going to explore, because we need to do what's best for the team. We'd love to have you on the team for the future. We'd love that. But if you're giving me every explanation of you're going to test, and if there's a team that comes out of nowhere, we have to do what's best for our team in the New York Mets and say, hey, if we get an offer we can't refuse on the trade market for you on 1 year of team control, we need to do what's best for us. So Stearns has said he'll be here next year. We've made that point. I've said 1,000 times. GMs lie.
Yeah, I think the thing that's most frustrating is it totally wipes out the chance of an extension this offseason. That's the thing that I'm most frustrated about, because I've been on the record for years and years and years saying that the Mets should have extended Pete Alonso, especially when the Braves were extending their young guys for ridiculous deals. I mean, the AAV that they got on Acuna and Albies was unheard of, and I thought the Mets should have done the same exact thing with Pete Alonso at the same time. So that will always come back to haunt them a little bit, because while he could still stay because of what happened with Brandon Nimmo, and because I do think that the Mets do keep Alonso as a high priority in the offseason next year in those negotiations, you're just going to be paying a lot more for him than you really should have, which is going to hurt your overall team, because, okay, that's a few extra dollars you've had for some pitching, for some outfielders, for some depth, all those things that we talk about every single year that the Mets could really use, and not having such a top-heavy roster because of the big-time contracts that you're giving out to the Scherzer, to the Verlander, to the Lindor. I think that they're going to find themselves in that situation with how much is going to cost to retain Pete Alonso. Like Andrew said, the chance of trade goes up a little bit. I still am not in favor of trades, especially with the Chicago Cubs. I mean, what do the Cubs have that the Mets would want that would make giving up Pete Alonso worth it? I don't see anything. So that's why, to me, it's that the deal has to be beyond crazy good for the Mets now and for the future for me to even consider. Because right now, my priority is, okay, let's see what Pete Alonso does this year. You know you're not going to extend them with Boras here. And just try to build your team. I mean, hopefully you have some other power bats that could step up so you don't have to rely on Pete Alonso so heavily. Because it's like we talked about, if Alonso was gone, who was good? Where's the power going to come from on this team? So I think there's a good opportunity for the Mets to work on getting those secondary power sources because now Pete Alonso does become more of an uncertainty with Boras as his agent.
We knew that if this were to continue to drag out, he was going to hire him. We knew that was going to happen, especially when he got a front row seat to what happened with Brandon Nimmo last offseason, one of his good buddies who ended up staying. The small list of players that have signed long-term extensions for hitting free agency. There's Jose Altuve, there's Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Gonzalez, Carlos Gomez, and then Steven Strasburg. When I look at that during the time that all those players were free agents, it's kind of the same tier as Pete Alonso, right? So there's a possibility that I think an extension could get done. Do I think it will? No. I think that he is going to go to free agency because every Boras client goes to free agency. But when you look at it from the tier of player, he's not a Juan Soto who's a Boras client. He's not one of these generational superstar players who are top 10 in the league or whatever. He is in that tier of guys who have signed long-term extensions with their teams before hitting free agency. So I think that there is a possibility, but I don't think that is going to happen. When I did see that when he eventually hired Boras, which was something that I was obviously anticipating, it officially made it that the Mets fucked up. They fucked up. They should have paid him a lot earlier in his career than they already did. And we all know that there has been some disputes with him in arbitration recently. And, I feel like you have a contract year for Pete Alonso. This year, he's going to make you pay. He is going to make you pay a lot more than you expected to pay. I know a lot of people have, talked about 8 years, $200 million as their limit. Well, what if Pete Alonso, you get him some power protection whatsoever, and this guy hits you 65 home runs? I mean, it's possible that it could happen if you get more pitches in the strike zone. You know that a lot of them are going to go over the fence. For what he has been able to do without all of those luxuries of power protection and pitches in the zone, I mean, the sky is the limit if you give this guy power protection. Maybe they should have done that for the last 5 years. That's a different discussion. But at this point, I'm really scared to see what happens next. Not really just if I'm afraid of losing Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is going to try and force your hand. There is a strong possibility that he has a Judge type of contract year where he's hitting 62 home runs. There's a possibility that can happen. We know he's capable of doing that if he's fully healthy. He's on the field more than Aaron Judge is. So we all know that there's a possibility of that consistency of him breaking out to another level of a power hitter. We know that is possible, especially in the prime of his career. He's 28, 29. He doesn't seem to be slowing down whatsoever. So, the ball is in, obviously, the Mets court right now. What are they going to do? That he is putting pressure on the Mets, saying that you need me more than I need you. And that's true.